We can look at how her taking care of him, building oxytocin. We can look at how her unstable relationship may give her estrogen higher, and how if she was in the middle of ovulation, she would have less, her reasoning will always be fighting against her, and she'd be more likely to pursue August Alsina in that moment of, actually pretty much basically them having sex and her orgasming would then lead to even more oxytocin building up in her, which would then make her want to actually pursue an entanglement. So
she want me to lock it down, but I told her to pass the key. You gotta slow it down, girl, you moving too fast for me. Nobody did it like this, so they wonder, they asking me if I can slow it down, cause it's coming too.
Welcome to Pray for Love, where you got to pray for love because that's the only thing you can control. So here on this channel, our entire purpose is to try to help people if they find love, keep it, and learn how to work for love once you do have it and keep it going forever. Because we live in a toxic generation and it's not really our fault. There's a lot of things going on here. Like one little thing to give you here is dating didn't even start until the 1890s. And we're really plagued by a lot of romanticism that happened in the early 1700s. There's just so much that's really led to our toxicity today that's out of our control. But for the sake of this, I thought a great way to help teach people and learn through, our hobby of learning about the science of love and what goes into it is just taking celebrities and taking famous situations and try to break it down from what we know, because we don't know everything about the situation. Obviously, there's three sides to every story is, their side, your side, and the truth, as they say, So trying to look at all that and then just trying to give our opinion of what we think was happening based on the chemicals in our brain through what we know. So that's what the series is about. And to get down to it, my name is Jake. I'm glad to have you here. Now, I'm not a psychologist or psychology major. I went to film school. I'm a filmmaker, aspiring screenwriter, but you can follow me at They Love Jakey.
My name is Jay Rich. I'm also in school. I'm an exercise and sports science major, but our passion is love. So we're going to be diving deep today, and we're going to be talking about one of those celebrity couples. They had problems last year. We're going to be talking about Will and Jada Smith.
Me wanting to help his health, his mental state.
When Og first came around, he was really sick.
And this whole August Alsina entanglement thing.
Yeah.
So if you want to just give a little background, what happened, how did it start off with like August kind of sneaking his way in almost, if he did, like he had a few problems in the beginning. If you want to just talk about what is your take on
it? Seemed like, well, she talked about how Augustina had like mental or physical problems. Anyway, he came to her for help and they became, quote, friends. Now, basically, that already sounds like the fact of she was helping taking care of him. She was helping nursing him back to good health. And when it comes to, taking care of things, we think of, children. And there's actually a big chemical in our brain, especially for women, that controls that, and that's oxytocin. Now, oxytocin is only released in two situations: taking care of your child or taking care of your mate. And last time I checked, August Alsina wasn't her baby. Now, you can build oxytocin without it being your born child. That's why adoption still works. People still love their adopted kid like it's their own kid, or people take in other kids and they can care for them like their own. Oxytocin still builds that bond like anything else. But yeah, pretty much comes down to the fact of if you help and take care of somebody who's in help or who needs help, there's a good chance that in a woman, oxytocin will build, and that creates a bond that's either shared by either, again, a child or her mate. And ain't no friendship oxytocin out there. All right.
Yeah.
So right off the bat, we can see like this first sign of, okay, taking care of him means, and that means even if she didn't, she could have no attraction to him, which, August Alsina, unlikely that you have no attraction to August Alsina, you know what I'm saying? But no, just saying, it's possible that she had no attraction to him when he first came to her, but her helping him would help develop oxytocin building up in her for him, right? So then I guess we can keep moving on from there. That's part one of this.
Yeah. So you talk about like August Alsina coming to her with those problems, them developing a different type of bond, and like you said, he wasn't her child. So this is like almost they're coming into a bond of a mating situation, if you will. And it's funny to say, like, what if like the unstable relationship, like if Will Smith or her were having, if their relationship was unstable at that time.
From there, you and I were going through a very difficult time.
Yeah.
Did that play a role into her, like, well, since we're unstable? Because they talked about separating. And even both of them said it, like Will Smith even said himself, I didn't think I was going to ever speak to you again.
Yeah.
And you see like that unstable relationship, it could create some uncertainty. It could get, different things to start to arise. Maybe you want to go back out on the sport again. Do you think that unstableness in their relationship could have caused her to like, go into like the actual of like having sex with August Alsina?
I got you. So yeah, so basically that they did pretty much say to themselves that they were having a difficult time and they thought the relationship was over. Now, there's a correlation between men where if the relationship is unstable, their testosterone actually rises in that situation, and that's what gets them, more likely to cheat, more likely out there because their testosterone is rising. And the reason it's rising and not already, high is because when you are in a committed relationship, when you reach that companion love, which we'll explain in other videos, but basically the second stage of love, the real love, your testosterone in a man is actually suppressed. So if you ever get into like that true love, which usually takes about 2 years to cross over into for most people, your testosterone will go down. It will be suppressed. And another hormone called vasopressin, another chemical, then goes up. And that is what makes you build a connection with that, with your female mate in a male. So it's easy to like hypothesize, if they just looked at it in the males, they didn't really check that in females, that if it's an unstable relationship, there's also a chance that a female can have certain hormones and chemicals hit up in her, not testosterone per se, but that will make her more open to seeking a relationship. Because for men, when that testosterone is up, you look in the hump, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So knowing that, they even said themselves, they said difficult time, thought relationship was over. That unstable rockiness is pretty much almost scientifically, they say chemically, is just the opening to trying to get into a new relationship. Not even if it's necessarily for love, but just for that dopamine senses. Because once that unstable relationship happens in men, testosterone rises, like I said, vasopressin goes down, but testosterone and dopamine are like 1-in-1 in men, and even in women. Women have testosterone, but dopamine is very important as well. So it's easy to say that if dopamine goes up in a man, dopamine will go up in a woman. And if dopamine goes up, that means their desire to, their desire to anticipate and want new things will also be reinvigorated, and they'll just want more. So so there's a good chance that just having a difficult, unstable relationship plus that oxytocin, we're already getting two things. 1 + 1 so far equals building a bond with somebody. And also you having troubles in a relationship to where, that dopamine might start popping again.
Yeah. I feel what you're saying. Because like you said, in testosterone in males, we often see that. And I know there's a few studies that we've been looking at that shows like estrogen is like almost in a sense the female version of testosterone, and a lot of times estrogen causes females to like not focus on like long-term problems, like long-term relationship, like is this a good guy, could I do life with this person, but it makes them focus on the right now, like okay, say August Alsina's here, I'm having a good time with him. Because in one of the interview clips we see that she mentions that she wants to feel good, so maybe maybe she got an increase in estrogen, wanted to be with him. And I know you talked about dopamine, and how like that could have possibly like affected her role into being with August Alsina, and it possibly could have been some of the endorphins. Like you want to talk about that, like how endorphins can play a role.
But I feel like something I need you to talk about, because you're a little more knowledgeable about this, is that she could have controlled her let's say her dopamine push that, because one thing about, I guess we probably explain what dopamine is a little bit. And that's, a lot of people think dopamine is about pleasure. Dopamine is actually not about pleasure. That was a bad study where they gave drug addicts drugs and then dopamine was artificially stimulated in their brains. But it turns out dopamine is actually about anticipating events. So basically, to give you an idea, it's all about risk prediction error, which means you believe something will happen and something different that's better happens, you get dopamine hit, and that makes you want more and more. So you always looking for pretty much questions. You're always looking for questions to be answered, basically. That's like the best way to put it. For example, is if you're checking your bank account, you think you have $100. If you have $200, you get a dopamine spike because of the fact of you weren't expecting to see $200. So you got a risk prediction error. So basically, when it comes to dopamine dies when there's nothing more to know. When you've been in a relationship with somebody like Will Smith, at the time they said it was 5 years ago, so they were 20 years deep in their relationship. There's no dopamine in that. There's nothing more to know. That's for a lot of people's relationships. And usually the dopaminergic love, which is pretty much fueled by dopamine, lasts about 12 to 18 months. So if you have a relationship that end around 2 years because the spark is gone, your dopamine is gone. And that leads to the second stage of love, which is companion love, which is what Will Smith and them were in. That's why his vasopressin was high. Companion love, dopamine goes down, suppressed. And for women, oxytocin, serotonin set in. For men, serotonin and vasopressin sets in. So that's a very quick explanation over dopamine and how it affects love. So I forgot what you was going with that though. But this is why I wanted to ask you though, because you're a little bit more knowledgeable in this, right? So now, the difference between us and animals is reasoning, right? It chemically, reproductively, love-wise, We all are the same. Yeah, all animals. You are the same as a lizard when it comes to love. Y'all have the same chemicals go off at the same time, the same processes, right?
Yeah.
But we have reasoning.
Okay, so in one of the books that we've been reading, and they did a study on women, and they basically looked at women's ovulation cycles. And so some of y'all that don't know what the ovulation period is, it's basically the time of the month in between the menstruation. It's around the 13 to 15 day mark, and it's basically when the egg is being released. And this is when women are the most fertile. So back what I was saying earlier, like that it may not necessarily be thinking of later down the road, because when the ovulation period hits, estrogen skyrockets. You get a big increase of it, and that basically the estrogen is telling the brain, we're not worried about it right now. The only thing that we're worried about is just getting this egg reproduced, getting this egg fertilized. So, and they said basically like during the time of ovulation, you see women will spend typically more on sexy clothes, sexy shoes versus food. They're less likely to talk to their fathers. They're even more likely to dream about other or fantasize about other partners than their actual partners. So like they may think about other women or other men than the person they actually committed to long term. And that's all because that the estrogen is hitting them and telling them, we're just focused on getting this egg fertilized. We're not worried about anything else. So, and to go back to that like maybe that could have played a role in here. Not saying she was on her ovulation, but maybe this unstable relationship may have increased her estrogen somehow, and maybe that may have played a effect into her being with August Alsina, because she was hitting like both types of that love, like that companion love. She already established like that oxytocin, and then maybe this dopamine along with the estrogen. You know, that's why not make the full commit.
It started like 1 + 1. Everything started falling where it may. I think a big thing about that like you made me remember there was also the fact that there was also a study done where they got a girl during her ovulation cycle, and she pretty much wanted a Chad, like, you know, like an outgoing winner type over like a nice guy.
Yeah.
So when you really think about it, if you look at, you know, Will Smith in this situation, 20 years in a marriage, vasopressin is high, so he's not aggressive. He's not really, you know, he's not like who he was 20 years ago. Then you got this young, you know, straight up testosterone August Alsina.
Sings, does it all.
Literally, so if she was in this period, right, this would be a great way for her to start a relationship, because well, like that initial like I just couldn't help it, and like it just happened, because again, we're not gonna get August Alsina. He was a dude in his 20s. He, I mean, if it's ready to go, you know what I'm saying? So we're not even gonna look at it. Ain't nothing chemical going in his brain except for testosterone and wanting to get some dopamine. You know what I'm saying? And that dopamine is leading him. So we're not worried about him. But yeah, for her, it was all happening at the right time. You know, oxytocin's building up right there. You know, her estrogen's a little bit higher than normal, leading her to one, especially because I don't think she's that old. Because I think Will Smith isn't even 50 yet, or you just say 50. So I don't think she's really hit that stage where, you know, she's menopausal or whatever. So we're in all these different things here. And then on top of that, you have, you know, she has to think about either Will Smith, who, you know, probably has seen better days, versus, I mean, a dude that most women would dream to be with. Yeah. So it's almost, So all it takes that little bit. And if she went for it, you know, she couldn't hold herself. Reasoning finally went out the window because her estrogen was so high. Then not only that is there's a big simulation between sex and oxytocin as well, isn't there?
Going back to that dopamine, it talks basically about how like dopamine is what drives us to come together, but it doesn't necessarily keep us together, you know. And throughout the studies we were reading, they don't really necessarily give us the tools to keep together, but they do talk about one thing. And one thing they talk about is with women. Now, when women experience an orgasm through sex, they oxytocin is released and it skyrockets. And that's what typically they say helps keeps or transitions from that dopamine love into companion love. It's because they start associating those feelings with that particular partner. So maybe, you know, that's another thing that could have been seen here, is that when she was already had established some oxytocin love, and then she got this dopamine that brought them together, maybe her experience in sexual relations with August Alsina helped transform that part even more into possibly a companion love if they ever reach that.
Right. So far we've got to the fact there, even if somehow in the world Jada was not attracted to August Alsina before this relationship began, we can look at how her taking care of him, building oxytocin. We can look at how her unstable relationship may get her estrogen higher, and how if she was in the middle of ovulation, she would have less, her reasoning will always be fighting against her, and she'd be more likely to pursue August Alsina in that moment of, you know, actually pretty much basically them having sex and her orgasming would then lead to even more oxytocin building up in her, which would then make her want to actually pursue an entanglement. So it will go from reasoning of I'm married, can't do this, to unstable relationship, estrogen, oxytocin, do it. Oh my gosh, that felt good. Orgasm, more oxytocin. Let's keep doing this. This feels right. And that's where people get that, oh, this feels right. That's nothing but endorphins and oxytocin building up in a woman. And in a male, it's just that chase for more dopamine. Right. So then even moving past that, we can look at Will Smith and the term mate guarding. Now, mate guarding, we've been seeing a YouTube video ourselves that kind of some people don't really understand what mate guarding really is. Mate guarding, when we watched the video and the dude was explaining, it's like, oh, if you got a girl with like a big butt and somebody's looking at her butt, you like cover her butt. That's not mate guarding. Mate guarding is literally when you are, well, in the animal world, you literally fight for your woman is your territory, and that's just and that's not being, misogynist.
It's not
that's
at all.
like
It's
the chemical, like it's how it works in the brain for
Yeah.
men. Women are like a territory they must protect. So in the wild, you don't protect your territory by covering it up. What you do, you attack whatever comes in. So basically, if you have higher testosterone, you're more aggressive in general. But when you're in companion love, your vasopressin actually suppresses your testosterone, and you are actually defending your girl by mate guarding because of the vasopressin, making you want to guard her because of your relationship. But in this situation, Will Smith, now he doesn't have much aggression because his testosterone will be suppressed. But the thing about mate guarding is less likely to happen if there's less at stake. So for somebody like Will Smith and Jada, who are both rich and
successful
famous
in their own rights. I mean, movies, you talk about the music, they're both successful. So coming together, I mean, sure, they would have something to lose. You talk about a relationship that they've built over 20 years. But at the end of the day, are they, like, if they were to get a divorce, when you compare that to your average everyday couple who might have to fight through cars or different money and all that stuff, they don't really have as much to lose because they're both successful in their own rights.
Yeah, and even coming to the kids, both one kid's grown and the other one with the daughter is pretty much like 17. She's about to be grown, so it's not like they're gonna be splitting up a family. They probably live pretty separately anyway because Will Smith's filming movies. What's the kid's name? Jaden is a star himself,
and Willow is too.
So it's not like they're breaking up a family. They're probably all separate most of the time anyway. And it kind of leads us to our final point here, the final piece of the puzzle of maybe how they even got back together through all of this. The final piece of the puzzle, and that is,
I'm gonna get you back first. And then
You gonna get me back? I think you got me back. I think we're good on that.
okay, that's probably true.
Will Smith, when he pretty much says he got his lick back, he made sure he got back at her. He pretty much cheated back. And now this is where it gets interesting because basically, if he did indeed get his lick back, which of course we know he did, he pretty much said it. So if he did have vasopressin, if he did a high vasopressin and that was suppressing testosterone, that means in order for him to cheat in pretty much an unstable relationship, his testosterone would get back up, his dopamine gets back up, and that would be, or maybe if he didn't even want to, but he did it just to get his revenge, then his dopamine and his testosterone will come back off the act of pretty much in order to get an erection that has to happen in the first place. So that would be elevated in order for him to even cheat in the first place. And once his dopamine and his testosterone is back, he'll be more aggressive. He'll be more willing to go take his wife back, even after the whole August Alsina's thing ended. They never really talked about how it ended, but either she ended it or Will Smith was like, I want my girl back. Either way, he may not realize this, but Will Smith cheating may have actually saved his relationship, at least chemically, because once that dopamine testosterone was back, he was more aggressive. He was almost back to his, quote, younger self. And because of the fact that Jada was cheating, her dopamine and stuff was high as well. So they basically could have fell back into dopaminergic love, or AKA the honeymoon phase, puppy love.
4.5 years ago.
Started
I think it was about 4 years ago.
And they said that was 4 years ago. So now they're already back in companion love. So really that could have pretty much been a re-spark in their relationship. That was a spark again. I feel it again. All the passion's back.
And
the passion.
And this, what you're talking about now, brings me back to an idea that we talked about previously and many a times. Like, why do, I'm going away, but like, why do like exes, have a continuing cycle of like falling back in love with each other, or getting back in relationships with each other? And it's because all those what ifs come back, and they're kind of driven by that dopamine in the sense of like, dang, what if we didn't give up? Or what if this person actually has changed? Because some people, they hit you with that text like, I've changed this time, I promised to do this and that. And it's a part of you that wants to believe them. But in a sense, like you said, like since both of them, like Will Smith's dopamine is back up, his testosterone started
because
back
he
up.
cheated.
And he cheated.
Just his lick back.
Yeah, yeah. And then like Jada was out there doing her thing. And maybe they came together and started thinking like, what happens this time? Like what could happen if we actually sit down and work this thing out? And so that cheating, like it could have saved their relationship.
In one of the books we read that deals with like the science of your brain and love, that even says like how cheating could be a good thing sometimes.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean you're supposed to go cheat. That's no excuse.
It's not
to cheat.
excusing it at all.
It's sometimes very few situations.
Yeah.
This is a situation where maybe 20 years deep into a marriage, like that got everything, that got the passion back, got them back into companion love, got his vasopressin back high. Maybe this time he's more in the mate guard, so he'll have a little more aggressive. Somebody tries it again.
Yeah.
So this is all we can take away from what they told us. They never told us how they got back together, how to August, or maybe they did, or we didn't see those clips and all. But basically, this is all we can just speculate based off science and based off what they gave us. But it also gives you a good idea of like how love works in the big sense, using situations we all know, right? Because a lot of the science in the books deal with animals. They mainly fucking voles. I don't know what the hell these things, prairie voles. Don't know what they are. Don't know what they're about, but they are like the most used. I feel sorry for them suckers. They're supposed to be running around in prairies. No, I mean, they getting shot up with testosterone, oxytocin,
everything
estrogen,
in the book.
Everything. Man, matter of fact, show you how power of dopamine is if you're still here, right? They actually made a prairie vole genetically modified to where it's dopamine. It just didn't produce dopamine. And dopamine drives your life so much that if you're depressed, you have a lack of dopamine. That's why you just want to sit in your room, not do anything. You don't want to do anything, right? So they pretty much made a depressed vole, and the vole would not move unless it was in pain or starving of hunger. If it wasn't one of those two things, it sat in the same spot. It didn't nap. It was awake and it just never moved because dopamine is that powerful. Without dopamine, you don't do anything.
Yeah.
So when we say like, oh, that dopamine hit old girl, or that dopamine hit old boy, that dopamine is powerful. The reason that you look at somebody and you're like, oh my gosh, I need to get that, that's your dopamine. And after you get enough time, the dopamine leaves and that passion's gone.
Yeah,
so
and that's what like people term falling out of love. That's typically what how you just said explains it, is that when that dopamine hits, and like you said earlier, around that 2-year mark, after you figured out what their favorite color is, what movie, you even probably met their family, you figured them out. That's when people necessarily start to hit that falling out of love. It just changed. Things were different. It's because you've hit all the highs that you could possibly hit. I mean, even when you talk about having intercourse, like it's only so many different types of lingerie, so many different types of positions, so many different types of places you could do it. And then after you've done it all, it's like that dopamine starts to fall back down, and then you're left with no what ifs. And then so next thing you know, you're searching for something different. Who is the next person? Where can I get this next dopamine hit from? So yeah,
and there's so much more here. We're pretty much trying to limit it because if we try to sit and go over everything, boy, we'll be for hours. We're probably at least 20 minutes already to explain this simple. This is simple. So if you want to see more of this, we're going to be using Future. Oh my gosh, can't wait to talk about Future. That's going to be hilarious and fun. And also almost sad because a lot of Future's problems come from his childhood, and why pretty much through some things that happened in his childhood, he may never be able to have like a real relationship. And that's why he keeps going and dumping girls and talking bad about them. But that's Future videos. If you want to stay around, you might hit that subscribe button. You know what I'm saying? Hit that like button if you haven't already hit it. Because we're going to teach you about some love today.
Through science. So it's legit.
Science,
it's legit.
Right? I know throughout this video, I probably popped up a lot of definitions that we were skimming over. Probably gave you some more insights there. But yeah, I mean, you hang with us and we'll help you out. I know it's toxic out here. I know there's 1,000 people at the flick of your button. I mean, I don't know the Tinder. The Tinder. I'm not on the Tinder. I don't know about the Tinder like that. But yeah, I mean, I know it's hard out here. It's hard out here trying to find love. When it feels like nobody else wants love. You know what I'm saying? Everybody's trying to have a good little time. I'm trying to have a good little life. You know what I mean? That's what we're here for.
Yeah. Just realize that relationships are not easy.
Yeah. So that pretty much wraps up like what we know based off of what they told us. But there's not just enough to break down the science of what happened. Let's also try to give you some key takeaways, learning from the celebrities, which is what we're supposed to be doing. You know, just not glorifying them, but learning from the mistakes of others, so we don't have to make the mistakes ourselves. So in this situation, you know, what can we take away from this and what we can use in our own lives?
I think one of the things, like even in one of the clips, Will Smith says it, like, it's not just magical. Speaking of love, it's not just magical thing. And I feel like Disney, in a sense, has portrayed it as when you meet someone, it's supposed to be easy. It's supposed to like be falling head over heels for someone and that's it.
Okay. But, I on top of it. So I'm in one of the books about it as well. As me as a filmmaker, you know, and a screenwriter, I know a lot about stories. Yeah. So in most love stories, when it comes like Disney style stuff, there's pretty much only 2 types of love stories, and I'm gonna give real brief on this, but it's actually pretty interesting and ties back to this. Yeah. Right. So you have love stories where the theme standing between the protagonist, the main character, and his love interest is another person or an event. So pretty much in Disney movies, it's literally them getting together. Cinderella, it's my mean stepmother and this and that. But at the end of the day, once you move the mountains, once you get with the character or the love interest, then everything's fine. It's happily ever after, right? And the other side is when the main character themselves are the problems why they can't get the love interest, because they have some problems that they need to resolve, and then they can get it. This is we see like the 40-year-old virgin, stuff like that, right? Where they're like, oh, I haven't got over this problem, so they won't love me, so they almost sabotage the relationship, right? So I feel like that's a little bit more realistic, but it's still not the same. Like when it comes down to in the story, you cannot look at Disney where the biggest problem about Disney movies is they have to get together. It's them being together. That's what's stopping them. But in real life, in real situations, that's the simplest part. Is being together. That's where the real challenges start. Getting together, easy. It's but staying together.
Staying together. And then big thing about staying together, I know, like not talking about Jada or Will, but like in like everyday couples is finding ways to get those spikes, those dopamine spikes, whether that's chasing a fitness dream, taking time to focus on your career, or like establishing good, strong relationships with your family and friends. So finding like separate ways to like make yourself feel good, and because that's really what Jada talked about in one of the clips, is just like she wanted to feel good again. And so just finding ways to make yourself feel good, make yourself feel valued, I think will help along a lot, and just putting in that work, not giving up, because even Will Smith talked about that, like not giving up on her, and he wanted to stick things through and by her side. But in order to get that, you gotta come to a point where you can kind of appreciate like what you have and not look out at like what else is out there, you know? Yeah.
So I get what you're saying there, because that's literally dealing more with because like I know I didn't bring this up now. I don't want to bring it up too often, but pretty much how science explains it is you can break up your entire brain into two portions, and it's your up and your down. And if you look down, anything you can touch, anything within arm reach, that's controlled by your here and now chemicals, which is serotonin and oxytocin. That is what allows you to appreciate like what's in front of you now. Like example is when you're having sex, you probably believe that dopamine is skyrocketing, but right before your orgasm, dopamine actually is plummeting, and it's oxytocin, serotonin, which allows you to feel like, what allows you to be in the moment. To be in the moment is serotonin, oxytocin. Dopamine is all about the future. You're looking at the future. You're looking at goals and what happens if I do this? What happens if I get this? That's what dopamine is for. It's to keep you pushing towards forward. And that's nothing about Will Smith and them. They're very successful. Very successful, but they also very successful in the same things that they've done their whole life. Will Smith and Jada, they have been movie stars since they were literal like teenagers. So there's a big chance that maybe they weren't getting dopamine hits from that anymore.
Because even like, I know one of the studies, I don't mean to cut you off, but one of the studies they talked about like when highly successful or driven people, when it comes to even just having intercourse, a lot of times they don't get as much satisfaction out of it. And it's because their mind is racing. Their mind is always wondering about the what ifs. And that's typically why you see in movies and why people talk about like just setting the mood, because in the book it talked about like how dopamine brings us together, but it doesn't necessarily keep us together. Like dopamine makes us attracted. It makes us, I gotta go get her number, or I gotta go get his number, but it doesn't necessarily like it help us experience an orgasm because we're so wound up. So like I said, in movies and all that stuff, and when you hear people say, oh, I got to turn off the lights, I got to light a candle, or I got to play some music, it's to help you relax, because it's scientifically proven like when people are able to relax more and be in that moment that we were speaking of, they're able to experience those orgasms. And that a lot of times is what helps like bring up that serotonin, that oxytocin, and that vasopressin, because you look for that partner for the way they make you feel. They make you feel valued. They make you feel good in a sense. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So what we can take away from that is, I mean, if you're successful or not successful, dopamine will eventually fade in anything you do. So the important thing is, like you said, is you got to find different things to keep your dopamine up, different things that can challenge you if it's a fitness goal, and that can allow you to at least have a dopamine hit to where you don't almost feel depressed in your relationship. And that's why you also can't make a relationship your whole thing. If your relationship is your whole life, when that dopamine stops and when it starts plummeting, because it will, that's literally how dopamine works, you will then feel like, wow, the spark's gone, what is the point of my life? You'll feel almost depressed because your relationship isn't, quote, working. When reality, it's trying to transition into that second stage of love, which is companion love. And that's where the here and now is. That's where the key to companion love, the key to having a long lasting relationship, which is hard for people like Will and Jada, and especially if you don't know it, but also when you're rich and famous, is appreciating the here and now. When you're a celebrity, when you're just anybody, you're always looking for like the next thing. You're looking for what's next, what's new, what's next, what can I jump onto next, right? But in order to have, and a good example is like me and my car. So I grew up broke, poor, homeless shelter, trailers, living with other people, living my football coach or some all-American type stuff, right? And when I, so I was always, my dopamine was always hitting about being successful, or not even successful, just getting out the hood, having my own stuff, right? So when I was 24, I bought me a little tricked out Mercedes, and I was happy. I mean, you could, my dopamine was to the roof. I was like, oh my God, look at this thing, I wonder how fast it goes. And on top of that, I got it shipped in. So I didn't get to see it until it got here. So my dopamine's like, I remember it took 24 hours for it to get here after I think it was 48 hours, right? I swear every hour was the longest hour of my life. I was like, oh my God, I wonder where it is. Like, oh my gosh, I wonder how fast it is, what it looks like. When I finally got it, it felt like an orgasm. I was like, oh my God, it's here. Like the euphoria was through it. Like, I'm in the car. I wonder how fast it goes. I'm putting it in sports mode, economy mode,
pressing all the buttons.
All the buttons. Boy, I'm out. Boy, you saw me in a red light. Yeah. Boy, I was gone. Boy, I had the AMG sports mode. I got AMG tires. I'm outside, and it ain't. You know what I'm saying? I'm killing it, right?
With the vocals,
right? And then I haven't had that car 2 years. It'll be 2 years in September, right?
Yeah.
But now I was with Justin. They were driving.
Yeah.
I saw a G-Wagon parked.
Yeah.
And I was remember, is that meme? The meme where dude's with a girl and he turns to the other girl? That was me with that G-Wagon. I'm like, man, screw. I mean, we were in my car too. I was like, man, screw this car. I want that G-Wagon. Right? I'm just like, I'm out here. Look at that G-Wagon. I bet I wonder how fast it goes.
Yeah.
Well, I wonder what them seats feel like, right? That's my dopamine making me want more and more. So I didn't appreciate the car that I strive my whole life for. But now I know when I get that sucker, I just appreciate. I feel it around. I make sure that my dopamine is lowering pretty much just by being here and now. You do the same thing in relationships. You got to appreciate the here and now.
Beautiful. Yeah. And not worry about everything else. Just look at your partner and just know that they're enough for you, and appreciate them. Day-to-day
appreciation.
Yeah, day-to-day appreciation.
And that's facts.
Yes, sir. Day-to-day appreciation.
Yeah.
Hey, hit that in a while. I forgot about that thing.
No, you good.
But that's what we can learn from Will Smith and Jada. Like we see how the chemicals work to get her in that situation.
Yeah.
Why maybe Will Smith didn't fight back situation because of the fact of vasopressin and everything else. We've been over it. And then the day, what you take away from that is sometimes cheating can reignite the passion, but no matter when the reignites the passion is there, it's going to always end eventually. This is why I'm sticking to more stuff. Like, for example, you will see in movies and TV shows where you'll have a female character like, the spark's gone, so I'm going to show up to his job in nothing but a trench coat. I'm going to show up to his house in nothing but a trench coat. That stuff, they're doing it wrong. They're trying to reignite dopaminergic love, that dopamine love, when most time they're like, we've been married for 15 years. They're in that companion love. They should be trying to appreciate the here and now, but instead they're trying to get that dopamine flowing without them even realizing. So even in movies, we can see like, next time you see them, like, that girl is doing it wrong. She's looking for dopamine. She should be trying to appreciate the here and get that serotonin, oxytocin, right? And that's where orgasms can help in women, because even for men, when you make a woman orgasm, their oxytocin goes up, so you actually build a bond with them doing that, just making them orgasm. Not the same in men. Men don't build a bond through orgasm, which is why like one night stands, women may feel a little bit more partial to them than the man does. They can just move on because that bond's not being felt. Vasopressin is how you build a bond with the man, and that can only happen when test is down.
And often piggybacking on that one night stand, like even when it does, like it helps facilitate it. Like that's the thing with one night stands. If you don't have a bond with that partner, it's hard for those one night stands just to say you established a relationship with them. They kind of talk about in the book, like it's a re-evolving door. Like in order to grow to love somebody, quote unquote, you have to keep being around them, getting to know them, experiencing them. Because it's just not a hit or a quit. It's just not a one type thing. But even for like both men and women, you have to keep, putting in that effort, putting in that work to get to know them. And that's what helps, I think, love. And I think that's one of the biggest takeaways is like, love is not just this easy thing. In order to stay in love and to be in love and to make it grow, you just have to. It's a day-to-day task.
Day-to-day appreciation of the here. You have to openly, if it's anything, make sure you appreciate it. If it's your car, if it's anything. But at the same time, though, if you want to grow in something, you want to keep going. Example, in your career, you like it's almost like a little thing you don't want to appreciate that. If you sit there like, I love this job. If you hear it now your job, you won't want to keep going. So there's a way to make dopamine work in your favor when you're trying to get that job. But it even says. But it's also the last thing, and we're gonna let you leave here, right? But it's even proven that in science that when vasopressin is elevated in men, so that means that they're in that companion love, they're even less likely to seek promotions and stuff in work. They're less likely to fight. They're less likely to do anything aggressive or that's almost help them push maneuver higher because of the fact of that's their body trying to keep them there in that constant state because that's what they think, that's what your brain thinks it wants, right? And that's why you have to pursue other things, or else you'll get to that point where your vasopressin is so elevated that your dopamine and your testosterone are so low that you almost get stuck.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And that can also make relationships worse when you're not trying to grow and one person is. But that's for another topic. But yeah, let's y'all get out here. Hopefully you learned something about love today. Hopefully it's something you can take away and help your own life and help maybe when you find that love, because all you can do is pray for love, because that's the only you can control.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
So we'll see y'all in the next one. Make sure you stick around. We got so much to talk about. Oh my gosh, wait till we get the future. Drake?
Yeah.
Drake? Hold on. One of them is Drake. I don't know. I think is it this? I don't know. I'm not gonna be. But yeah, we're gonna get to Drake, all them boys.
Yeah.
Rihanna.
Yeah.
Rihanna. Yeah, all of them. So thanks for tuning in. Again, I'm Jake at They Love Jakey.
I'm J Rich at That's J Rich.
Okay, and we're out.
Yeah.